In today's video, we're going to look at offshore banking, but in a bigger way. This is the first of two videos where we're going to explain offshore bank account opening. To start, we're going to cover what is an offshore account, how you can benefit from offshore banking, and what you cannot do with an offshore account. And yes, we're even going to dispel a few rumors about offshore banking and taxes. But before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get alerted every time we post new non-resident banking opportunities. To help you get started with offshore account opening, we have a free non-resident banking starter guide. It's designed to help non-resident and foreigners open bank accounts. So don't forget to download your copy using the link in the description below. An offshore account can be a powerful tool for diversification, asset protection, and even wealth creation. But if you're not careful or choose the wrong one, offshore accounts can also cause headaches, trigger unintended tax reporting requirements, and be expensive to maintain. In this video, we'll show you how to open an offshore account, reap the benefits, and avoid the pitfalls. We'll also share the specific countries where foreigners can open an offshore account, what the advantages are, and what you need to watch out for in the process. But first, let's get on the same page about what an offshore account really is. An offshore account is any bank account held in a foreign country. They can be opened and maintained by individuals, companies, trusts, or foundations. Offshore accounts provide benefits such as diversification, enhanced privacy, tax efficiency, and varying degrees of asset protection. Importantly, opening an offshore account is 100% legal, can be cost-effective, and done remotely. So having just shared the textbook definition of an offshore account, now let's dig into what an offshore account really is, where they are, why people use them, what the advantages are, and how you can benefit from opening one for yourself. To start, let's be clear, an offshore account does not mean banking in some far-flung Caribbean outpost or a South Pacific island paradise. Sure, it can mean that, but it doesn't have to. In fact, sometimes opening an offshore account in a major international financial center or even plain vanilla Western jurisdiction is just as useful, depending on your goals. Speaking of goals, in the next part of this video, we're going to break down the benefits of an offshore account. But first, we wanted to tackle one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to opening an offshore account: tax evasion. Yes, many years ago, an offshore account was synonymous with tax evasion. Many people opened accounts abroad, deposited cash, didn't report it to tax authorities, and then invested that cash, generating tax-free returns. Back then, governments had no way of finding out about the account because banks were tight-lipped about their customers. That's because bank secrecy was still a thing, automatic exchange of information didn't exist, and banks didn't share client information with governments. But the times have changed. Today, most banks and governments trade information about account holders to make sure everybody is paying their tax bills. And that includes banks and governments in offshore jurisdictions. So, bank secrecy and using offshore accounts to evade taxes is a thing of the past. And that's a good thing for a lot of reasons. One reason, which no one ever talks about, is that banks are now forced to compete and offer clients real value. Before information sharing began, clients were saving so much money by not paying taxes that they didn't care about the quality of service, fees, or low returns. So long as bank secrecy remained intact, clients were happy and banks could charge whatever they wanted. Today, those days are long gone, but there are still legitimate and practical reasons why many people and companies still open offshore accounts. Now, let's get into some of the benefits of an offshore account. Ultimately, the benefits that someone can derive from an offshore account are going to depend on their citizenship, residency, objectives, and more. But there are a handful of common benefits that most clients can tap into when opening accounts. In this part of the video, we're going to look at 5 of these benefits in detail. This will include examples of specific jurisdictions where you can access each benefit and additional resources to dig even deeper. First, let's take a look at the 5 most common benefits that people are interested in when opening an offshore account: increased privacy, asset protection, economic diversification, political diversification, and reduced taxes. Now, I'll quickly explain each of the benefits and how you can tap into them by opening an offshore account. Number 1, increased privacy via an offshore account. In the world of banking, privacy has become a dirty word. And that's unfortunate because privacy is important, especially when it comes to financial affairs. So, if privacy is what you're after, an offshore account can help, with some caveats. First, while there are plenty of countries that still offer banking secrecy, this doesn't guarantee that your information won't be shared with various authorities and governments. This is especially true for any customers, accounts, or activity viewed as suspicious, potentially illicit, or where agreements require the bank to share information with tax authorities, foreign governments, or international authorities. But offshore accounts can offer privacy in other ways. For instance, many countries that offer offshore accounts have specific laws that forbid bankers and bank employees from disclosing information about client accounts to anyone. If they do, they face very high fines, immediate dismissal, and even jail time. Of course, if you're worried about bank staff sharing your financial information with unauthorized parties, you should also take into consideration local culture, customs, the likelihood of bankers accepting bribes, to what extent secrecy laws are actually enforced in that country, and how seriously the bank and jurisdiction take violations of bank secrecy laws. How easy is it for your arch nemesis to call up your bank, confirm the account exists, and access your account information? Banks in countries with low security standards, poorly paid bankers, where there's a cultural affinity for bribery and corruption, and historically low concern for bank secrecy, are not great for privacy, even if they have bank secrecy laws in place. That said, if you have an offshore account in a country with bank secrecy laws, realize that your information is still accessible to government agencies and tax authorities. Here's a selection of jurisdictions that have strong bank secrecy legislation. If privacy is what you're looking for, one of these countries may be of interest. Cayman Islands, Hong Kong, Ireland, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Panama, Singapore, Switzerland, and the United States. Number 2, asset protection via an offshore account. Many people want an offshore account for asset protection purposes, but ironclad asset protection cannot be entirely achieved by simply opening an offshore bank account. In very simple terms, true impenetrable asset protection can only occur if the asset is properly structured. This often involves creating an appropriate asset protection vehicle, like a company, trust, foundation, etc., in a jurisdiction that has strong and proven asset protection laws. But an offshore account can still offer a basic level of asset protection. For example, if you live in a litigious country where lawsuits are common, accounts are easily blocked, and tax authorities and creditors have the power to instantly freeze and garnish domestic bank accounts, keeping a portion of assets abroad makes financial sense. Similarly, if you live in a country with poor rule of law that's filled with corruption, kleptocrats, and extortion, having an offshore account in a stable country might be a form of asset protection for yourself. The point is, by holding even a small portion of your funds in an offshore account, you ensure that you and your family can always access your money, no matter what happens. The key is choosing the right jurisdiction and the right bank that match your objectives and provide the benefits you're after. Number 3, economic diversification via an offshore account. Now, economic diversification is another major reason why people open offshore accounts. And it makes sense. If you live in a country with a failing economy where inflation is out of control and the currency is unstable, why wouldn't you open an offshore account? Case in point, Argentina, Venezuela, Lebanon, and Russia. By opening an offshore account in a foreign country, you minimize your financial exposure and diversify away from economic risks in your home country. With over 190 countries in the world, there's no need to bank in your home country if you don't want to. Instead, it all boils down to your banking goals, which jurisdictions make sense for you, and where you can realistically open accounts. For this reason, many people choose to open an offshore account in jurisdictions with long histories of economic stability, strong rule of law, and sound fiscal management. Economically stable jurisdictions include places like Singapore and Switzerland, 2 countries where non-resident accounts can be opened remotely. 4. Political diversification via an offshore account. Somewhat connected to the desire for economic diversification is political diversification. Political instability, corrupt politicians, poor judgment, policy changes, draconian laws, exchange controls, and expropriation are all real threats. So, it's no surprise that many people minimize these risks and protect their money by opening an offshore account. In doing so, they shield their wealth from political instability and the issues that come with it. Political diversification is commonly cited as a concern for people living in countries prone to political unrest, corruption, and instability, such as CIS member states, Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. However, political stability is a concern for people in Western countries as well. Maybe it's that oppressive tax laws, policy changes, or restrictive measures that eat away at your wealth, hurt your business, and reduce freedom. Or maybe you're just concerned with the direction your country is headed. Regardless of your reasoning, keeping a portion of your wealth in an offshore account can offer protection. Number 5, minimize taxes via an offshore account. Now, we return to the topic of taxes. Can offshore accounts reduce your tax bill? Well, the answer is complicated, and it depends on where you're from and is ultimately a maybe. That's because taxes are ultimately determined by either your citizenship, your residency, how you're structured, and where you're obligated to pay taxes. So, while an offshore account can reduce taxes, it typically requires the individual account holder to first be a resident of a no-tax jurisdiction, like a Cayman Islands, a low-tax jurisdiction, like Malta, or a territorial tax jurisdiction, like Panama. Alternatively, certain individuals who have non-domiciled resident status in countries such as the UK, Ireland, or Cyprus are also able to legally avoid taxes by simply keeping funds in an offshore account and never remitting them to the country where they live. Likewise, companies can use offshore accounts to reduce or eliminate taxes in certain situations. For example, if a Singapore company remits foreign earned income to a bank account in Singapore, they have to pay tax. But if that same company keeps foreign earned income in an offshore account and never remits it to Singapore, that tax is eliminated. So, offshore accounts can eliminate or reduce tax depending on your situation, how you're structured, and the tax laws that apply. In our next video, we'll talk about where you can open offshore accounts, diving into some of the most popular and sought after jurisdictions. Of course, if you want to start opening accounts today, well, you can obviously use the information that I've shared in this video. Or you can access one of our account opening services and start taking action today. Each of our premium services are designed to help non-resident individuals, foreigners, and their businesses open international bank accounts. Whether you need personal, private, business, offshore, or even US banking, we have an account opening solution that will work for you. You can get started with GlobalBanks IQ, our international banking intelligence service. It gives you step-by-step instructions and all the tools you need to find and open accounts with top banks around the world. Plus, you'll unlock our international intelligence reports, account opening strategies, international bank database, and much more. We also have a dedicated US account opening service called GlobalBanks USA, which is 100% focused on helping non-residents, foreigners, and even foreign and offshore companies open bank accounts in the US. It involves direct one-on-one support from our team of experts and includes access to our US banking intelligence reports, US account opening strategies, and US bank database. And of course, there's our flagship service, GlobalBanks Insider. With GlobalBanks Insider, you'll get access to everything we offer, including all the benefits in GlobalBanks IQ and GlobalBanks USA. Plus, our entire library of premium reports, the entire GlobalBanks database, and dedicated one-on-one support from our team of international banking experts to help you find and open the accounts you need. So, no matter where you're looking to bank in the world, you're only a few clicks away from finding and opening international accounts. To get started, just click the link in the description below to learn more about the available options. And before signing off, don't forget to hit subscribe so you get alerted every time we share new banking opportunities. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.